I was awoken by the police at my front door in the middle of the night with two local police officers telling me briefly about a nightmare story that my brother and his fiancée had just been murdered in their apartment. Was I dreaming? Surely this was a nightmare. No way could this be true. How was I going to explain this to my wife, my sister, my mother, and the countless friends and family members around the world? How do I explain this to my children? What do I tell them? I can't seriously tell them the truth that a monster broke into their home.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it? That's just some of the testimony we heard at today's sentencing hearing for the man convicted of slaughtering two Boston doctors. A judge sentenced Bampamim Teixeira to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. This happened earlier today. But in a twist, he was not in the courtroom at the time. The judge had removed him because the judge said the defendant simply couldn't control himself. Teixeira and his lawyer listened to the proceedings from another room. Remember, earlier this week, he was dragged out of the courtroom 2 other times. He threatened the prosecutor's wife. He was taunting the families of the victims. It was quite a scene. I'm joined now by criminal defense attorney Mark Eiglarsh. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, I remember watching some of that this week when he was dragged out of the courtroom. The murders, they were so gruesome. I mean, he was always going to get life, right?
Right. And then look what happened.
2 consecutive life terms. I'm sort of curious about any type of appeal here. Is that a possibility? Because we did see those outbursts. Is that going to impact any chance of appeals?
Well, nobody put a gun to his head and forced him to do the outburst, just so we're clear. This happens all the time. I've actually had some clients who, believe it or not, I can't control. And the appellate courts, they're not too sympathetic. If it's something that the defendant does, which prejudices his own trial, usually appellate courts do not reverse convictions based upon that.
I'm sort of curious, from your experiences, what is it like when you're in a courtroom and you see something like this? Because we talked about the fact that the jury may not have been there, but there was family and witnessing all of these outbursts.
Yeah. Well, it's compelling, first of all. You know, sometimes they can't fully understand and appreciate all the evidence, but what they can appreciate is what they're dealing with. They look over and they see how someone behaves in a situation where they're supposed to compose themselves and follow the rules of court, and it just so grossly prejudices them, which is why, just so you know, I spend hours preparing my clients for the appearance, the theater that is the courtroom. It is a theater, and they're being watched every second. So every gesture, every comment, every movement matters.
When we look at his behavior, some people will say, wait, is this a show, or is he really can't control himself? I know that you can't speak to that, but you have certainly had clients who may have been one or the other.
Right. There are some who, again, I don't know what's in his head. Some have just incredible defects in character. Some have mental illness. I don't know what his plan is. He might just be extremely cunning and baffling, and he thinks he's doing the right thing. I think it comes into those 3 general categories. But either way, it just doesn't help. You've either got the goods that can help create reasonable doubt, or you don't. Those shenanigans rarely, if ever, work.
All right, Mark Eiglarsh, thank you so much for joining us. It was really a scene this week, and our thoughts and prayers are with those families, because it was a horrific scene. Thank you.
Yeah.